All right, so we are going to be talking about Nick Fuentes, and I cannot believe I actually missed this when he was on Patrick Bet-David's podcast back in September, and it was towards the tail end of the podcast that this got brought up. I went back and rewatched it, and then I ran across it. I don't know if I finished it or something like that, because this flew underneath the radar for me. When it got brought up about, Patrick's asked Nick Fuentes, so where would you rather live? Boca Raton, where it's heavily populated with Jewish people, or in Dearborn, Michigan? The answer might surprise you what Nick Fuentes said, but we're also going to talk about just a couple things before we get into that, because it's the new year, it's 2026, and as you can see, sparks are already flying. The U.S. they invaded Venezuela. We knew this was coming eventually. We just didn't know when. And this morning, we went in there and we captured Maduro and his wife, and they are being brought to the United States to face our justice system. I think that's very interesting. I stand completely with the United States and Donald Trump's decision. I think it's a good decision. I think what shocked everyone was that he says that the U.S. is going to run Venezuela for a certain amount of time. And what all that means, that is fully fleshed out, we shall see. I thought there's a couple other things that in the news that have been, I just wanted to just bring up. I know people have talked about, but the Somali daycare, that is the whole Somali fraud situation that has happened. I did a brief video on it as well, but so many other things have come out, and I thought it was pretty interesting and funny that one of the daycares that hasn't even been investigated yet, they're already thinking ahead of time, and someone broke in. I'm not thinking it's real legit. I think they probably staged it. We shall find out. But somebody broke in and took all the records, documents, everything about their history, where all the money's going, their employees and all that, and it somehow has vanished. So they're getting ahead of it. It's pretty funny if you really think about it. And then I don't know if you've seen this person. This is a woman that it's been disclosed who she is, where she's at and all that, and what she's doing. But she said something pretty interesting. I want to look at this video of what she said about Elon Musk. And I'll just read it. First of all, it says, breaking, Somali TikToker threatens Elon Musk's life. I wouldn't worry too much about him. He about to die. And then it says, protect Elon Musk at all costs. Yes. Amen. Protect Elon Musk at all costs. What was she thinking? Let's take a look at this.
Musk. Elon Musk was good.
And people say this is fake. I'm like,
well,
let's look at.
Kan muxuu haystaa lacag bis u haystaa baduu fool xun yahay. Iska fool xun yahay kan. Waa duq uu dhiman rabaa. I wouldn't worry too much about this one. That albaabkiisa jooga. I wouldn't worry too much about him. He about to die.
You could clearly hear saying Elon Musk, he about to die. She's completely backtracked on this and saying she's fearing for her life. Most people found out about it was because Elon Musk tweeted over it. Then it is war. And then after that, the next day, she came out with her whole, you misunderstood me. All right, let's dive into the Nick Fuentes. And there are a couple of different things I wanted to highlight on this. This is when he brings up what Nick Fuentes said towards the tail end of this video, this podcast, because I'm still trying to understand Nick. And I've been really diving into him and learning more about him since this past summer. This is where I came to not learn who he was, because I briefly knew his name, but more about him. And I am very interested in him. He's a fascinating person. He's going to be a person that is going to steer the direction that the United States is going to go. Like it or love it, he is. And towards the end of this, we're going to get in Joel Webbin. He is doing a full series that he's dripping out little by little. It's a 10-part series of who is Nick Fuentes, and you should check that out on his channel. We'll briefly go over that at the end, which is very interesting. But when it gets brought up about Israel and about Jewish people, he has a lot to say, obviously, about that. But then Patrick says, so what's your beef? If you could choose, where would you rather live? And that's going to be towards the end of this. Would you rather live in a heavily populated Jewish area? Or would you rather go into Dearborn, Michigan, where it's heavily populated Muslims? All right, and I want to point out some contradicting thoughts that I'm seeing in Nick's mind. I don't know if he's fully thought it out, and I'm not a perfect person. I have contradictions sometimes in my own mind, things that don't line up, and I have to say it out loud to almost hear how stupid I sound, and then I can maybe, well, that was kind of idiotic. I might need to rethink what I'm saying. There's something in here that I see as a contradiction, but let's see if you can catch it.
When you see Jewish people working together, I don't think there's anything wrong with that inherently. And I agree with you. It's like a superpower. It's actually admirable in some ways. They look out for each other. But if society becomes, American society in particular, a place where every group is ganging up, well, we're the whites, we're the blacks, we're the Jews, then I think what America is starts to come apart. And it turns into kind of like a bit of a politicized race war. And I think that you either have to have a society where everybody gets to play by those rules and everybody could be pro what they are, or everybody is assimilated and we're all Americans. And that's why.
Right there. So, and this is where I'm seeing like the disconnect, the difference. Do you want this? Because he is very big on identity politics, identitarianism, just who people are, whites, blacks, Hispanics, all that you really hone in on that, you own it. And we should be fighting for our specific identity, our group. And he says that the Jewish people, they're not assimilating. They're not assimilating. They're different. They're other, and they're not assimilating to our way of life, which seems to be what we're going to see is a contradiction when he brings up the melting pot, when he says that it's a Jewish idea that has been foisted upon us. So I'm trying to really wrap my head around this. Do we want everyone to assimilate in America? Do we want everybody to forget everything, their heritage of where they're from, what they came from, and they're solely American? And they can't have anything like any diversity as well. We all have to be uniform and look the exact same, be the exact same. Or I'm trying to really understand this because I'm seeing somewhat of a contradiction in what he's saying, because when he points out, he puts Israel, Jewish people on a pedestal and saying they can't do what everyone else can do, including white people.
Say it's detrimental is that if Jewish people are Jewish first, not of, by, and for America, but of, by, and for the Jewish nation, this is problematic when they're in positions of power, because are they looking out for all of us, or are they looking out for themselves first? And when you look at the Israel policy, that's where people start to say, I think you're looking out for yourselves first. I think you're biased.
This is where I would make the equivocation. And I have not heard anyone say this. I have not heard, and I'm going to say it out loud, so I don't know if it's going to sound stupid, but I don't think it is. And I don't know if I'm the only one that has come up with this. The same thing that he's doing with Israel and with Jewish people, I would say that he is the exact same thing, but the opposite side of the spectrum, as a Roman Catholic, because he is seeing everything through that lens, and he is strictly adhered to Roman Catholicism, not just Christianity, not just the big tent umbrella of Christianity, of people who call on the name of Christ and are Christians that believe in Jesus, but specifically, strictly Roman Catholic. I would say it's the exact same thing that Jewish people, that Israel is doing, that they have a tie to Israel and to their Jewish nation, to their way of life and who they are specifically, that they are very, very exclusive. And so and nobody is pointing this out. I hear maybe brief little clips of someone calling out. I don't know if Destiny did it at one time, asked him the same thing, and then he just doubled down. He's like, because our religion is the right one. It's not, Israel can do whatever they're doing, but it's because our religion is the right one that I can criticize them, but I can own ours because we're right. They're wrong. Maybe.
And unfortunately, you're using the public purse and American soldiers to fight your own battles. And that's the problem. It's not, I don't have hatred for them. I don't have a problem with them in themselves or even what they do. It's just that with our system, that doesn't work.
I go back and forth because I love hearing him speak. I love his ideas, but at the same time, I certainly disagree with him. And the more I hear him, the more I disagree with him. But he owns what he believes in. He owns what he says, and he says it with conviction and with comedy, and he's very entertaining. Everybody is being very heavily influenced by this man. So I think if you're not talking about him or if you're not listening to him, you're missing out on a whole lot. We're going to go a little bit further on this previous video before I bounce to the next one.
Say to that as well, when, if they use the American soldiers in their advantage and all that other stuff. Okay. Who negotiated that deal? Some president negotiated that deal. Someone said yes to it, right? When they say, well, let me tell you, that person is afraid to platform this guy because he's afraid his donors are going to go and do this. And it's Israel's fault. No, it's not. It's the guy who runs it's not Israel.
We have welcomed Israel in. And this is the difference. I think we should be welcoming Israel in. We should, because Nick is heavily tied to Roman Catholicism. He is missing the whole point. Christians, and I will say this with conviction, and I'm serious about this. Many Christians are missing the point on Israel. And because we've been drowned in this idea that the church has replaced Israel. And it's and Roman Catholicism is the perfect premier exemplar of this ideology that they have replaced. They have taken over that spot of Israel. And Nick is owning it. And I think a lot of Christians are owning it. We just think we're here. The Jews are gone. They're a thing of the past. We're forgetting about them. The Gentiles rule all. But the Gentiles don't rule all. This is the times of the Gentiles. That's the whole point of the New Testament. When Jesus came, the Jews rejected their Messiah. Jesus came to the Jews first, and then he comes to everyone else. And this is the times. It's not going to last forever. God is not going to forget his covenantal people. So it's like we want to be. I'm all American first. I agree with America first 100%. But we're not going to be blessed as a nation if we don't bless the nation that is blessed by God. Because whether they've rejected the Messiah or not, which was a heinous, huge sin, which they did, and they're suffering for it, and they're in delusion for it. They're messed up. They are blinded to who the Messiah is. They don't know it. They're still waiting on some Messiah, and they're rejecting their Messiah for 2,000 years. But just us to like forget and say that, what they've done is irredeemable. They can't be brought back. God is going to bring them back. They are the conclusion of the matter. And it's like, if we forget that, if we just buy into this whole lying mindset that Roman Catholicism or any specific church is the replacement of God's covenantal people, you're missing it. You're missing the mark. Patrick Bet-David asked him specifically, okay, because I'm seeing mixed signals from Nick, because and this goes in with Catholicism, because they're welcoming all these other religions out there, Islam and Hinduism and all that, giving them their own. I this is what I've heard, their own little prayer chambers in like their holy areas or whatever. This is because they're trying to be a melting pot for that. So I'm seeing them go more towards Muslim, and I'm seeing differences between Nick and pure Catholicism. And this is where it really just stands out to me a lot, because I'm thinking there's so much infighting between Roman Catholics, which, I mean, there's infighting between all Christians. But I'm not seeing, like, is Nick a pure Catholic or not? I don't know. I don't know if he is or not. If he's standing on everything what the church believes and says or whatever, or if he's going outside the boundaries of what the church has laid out for them. I don't know. But I'm seeing him throw out Israel or target Israel, welcome Muslims, but at the same time, he's going to be asked the question, would you rather live amongst Jewish people or in a heavily populated Muslim area? And he chooses Israel. He chooses Israel.
I mean, look, if you said Israel over Muslims, right? Mm-hmm. Which of the two do you think has been a bigger net positive to America?
Oh, it has to be Israel, absolutely.
Okay, so a part about that part.
But, well, in terms of, I wouldn't say net positive. I would say in terms of raw, maybe like gross positive. Because they've had a lot of contributions culturally and even, in terms of art, literature, music, also scientifically. But it's difficult to say on that, because I also think that there's quite a bit of a detriment. I think that the melting pot comes from the Jewish community.
What do you mean by that?
The idea of the melting pot, that comes from a Jewish playwright, because Jewish people come to America, and like all immigrants, they say, well, we want America to be more welcoming. So they start to spin up.
So a second ago, he said, and this is pretty close in the podcast, it's not too far away in the distance in the podcast itself. He says that Israel people are not assimilating into America. They're not becoming like the Italian immigrants like he is, or his family heritage, that came over and they assimilated and they became American, full-fledged American, and he considers himself an American, not an Italian American. But then he brings up, so it's like they're not assimilating, but then also a melting pot is bad. Is there equivalency between melting pot and assimilation? And I'm really asking this, because I'm not understanding the difference, because I'm seeing him talk out of both sides of his mouth. Like, which do you want it to be? What do you want it to be? Do you want it to be Jewish people to forget being Jews and forget about Israel, forget about their homeland, their country of origin? Because it's not like Nick is forgetting about Italy, and I don't know my full history, my full family history. I want to learn more about it, but like exactly where I came from, it's not like we have to throw all of that away. It's so. In this melting pot, do we want it or not? He throws shame on it and casts aspersion on it when it gets brought up like, oh, that was just something that Jews foisted upon us. They threw on us this melting pot so that they can kind of just blend in. They don't stand out and everyone's tolerant of everybody. I'm seeing contradictions because I'm trying to understand really what his mindset. I like what he's doing. I like his tactics. I like his strategy, but I don't understand it. I don't particularly agree with his conclusion and logical outcome of what he is wanting. And I disagree with the foundation as well of Nick Fuentes, where he's standing on, because it is this replacement theology. The church has replaced Israel, which is completely unbiblical. It is unbiblical. It's not.
These ideas that, well, America was never this country of white Christians. It's always been a melting pot for all immigrants. They want the country to be more open because that makes it more comfortable for them. It makes it more tolerant for them. But this has also made us more open and tolerant for Muslims, for example. Who's been the biggest driver of like the Hart-Celler 65 Immigration Act? It was like the SPLC, which is run by Jewish lawyers. And so they're major drivers of mass migration. They're also major drivers of the pro-Israel politics, like the Iraq War. It was many Jewish journalists and
so maybe not, he's saying maybe not an overall net positive, because Jews come in here into America and they're kind of the neck. The president is the head or whatever, the government is the head, but they're kind of the neck. They're turning it whichever way they want and to benefit Israel. And that's where I disagree. Like, I know this is not the popular opinion at the time. The wind of politics right now is not to support Israel. Any popular name out there is not, any cool name out there is not supporting Israel. Because we can see that they're doing things that appear bad to us, or that we're being fed that is bad to us. I don't necessarily agree that it is. I think that we are being propagandized by people that just hate them, and they want to make them in the worst light possible, saying that they are committing a genocide or a Holocaust over there, which I think it's popular and it's the cool thing to say. Theo Vaughn says it, and certain people say it just to, cast them aside and just discount them. But like, really, what is actually happening? Boots on the ground, actually there. They are the more, you would feel safer in Israel than you would in Gaza or in Palestine, because we understand that if you go to Israel and you're protected, it is a democracy there. It's a safe land, a safe haven. But I want to continue a little bit further because he's going to bring up where he would rather stay.
Pundits and advocates.
Sure.
So a point being is like when you calculate on net, and I agree with you, like I think there are a lot of people that are critical of Israel that are reluctant to acknowledge the good that Jews do. And I think that they're brilliant. Many of them are brilliant.
So when I'm saying net positive, I'm talking jobs, economy. How often you hear about crime, what they do. Like if you have a choice between living in a city in Minnesota, Dearborn, and living in, I don't know what's the biggest city. What's the city that Boca Raton, let's just say, right? If you have a choice between raising your family, between Dearborn and Boca Raton, what do you choose?
Boca Raton,
okay,
of course,
so the point is like, they go to a place. And by the way, to me, if that was Muslims, guess what? I would say Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
But statistically, wherever they live, it's safer, things are nicer, things get better.
I agree.
And that is one part to measure where they're at. Now,
without hesitation, he says Boca Raton. Without hesitation, he brings up, and he's asked that point blank, where would you rather stay? Boca Raton. Without question, without hesitation, because he understands that there is a connection between Christianity and Jewish people and Judaism that there is not with Muslims. That is not. Christianity is the fulfillment of the Jewish lifestyle and belief. It's what it all comes into. It finds its finalization in Christianity. The Messiah has come. We're probably running Christianity a little bit kind of crazy at the wheel at times. And we're probably causing Jewish people to like, what? If our Messiah came, would it really look like that? Would it really go in that direction? Would it really do that? And I think there was a destabilizing force that happened at the beginning of like the early centuries of the church, because we cast out everybody that was Jewish. We said, if you're eating pork, then you're going back into Judaism, and they would just try to make everyone a Gentile blob, a Gentile, homogenize everyone to be Gentiles. No, forget all that Jewish stuff, all those Jewish things that you do. If you want to be the new era, the new covenant, which the new covenant itself it's given to the Jews. And it's like we're running it. We're riding this train, and the new covenant itself was promised to Israel. It's made with what does it say exactly in Ezekiel? It says, I will make a new covenant with them, with the house of Israel, with the house of Judah. That's who it's made with. It's not made to, 21st century Gentile Christians or whatever. We get to join a part of it because we are absorbed. We are in Christ. We are in the Messiah. We are grafted in. And that's where there's this disconnect that is happening. I see it completely fully fleshed out because Nick is running with it because he's coming from that Roman Catholicism perspective, which I'm not going to say Roman Catholicism is completely wrong at all. I don't think any Protestant flavor of Christianity has got it all completely right, and they're perfect, and they're doing exactly what Jesus would have them be doing, and they're believing exactly what Jesus would have them be doing. I think all these things are just going to melt away once Jesus returns, once Jesus comes back and sets everything in order. These things that we're just kicking each other and punching each other about and just slapping each other in the face. You're doing the Lord's Supper wrong. You're doing baptism wrong. You're doing church governance wrong. You got to be a part of this building, this group as opposed to that one. I think all that is just going to melt away when Jesus returns. But Nick is the exact opposite of the Jewish people, because he's running with the Roman Catholic view, and there's opposition that's happening. There's disconnect that's happening because it's trying to take their birthright. It's trying to take and say that you have it, and almost getting upset at that group because they're the legitimate heirs of it. They are the legitimate heirs of it. And I think we cannot forget that. And I think a lot of Christianity has forgotten that. And we're rolling and doing things that we want to be doing, but we're probably not doing it the best way possible. I just wanted to bring that up because I'm seeing a disconnect, because him just saying that without hesitation, Boca Raton, obviously, it's because people see an easy target, just like they see an easy target in Christians. Christians see an easy target with Jewish people. And I know that Jewish people can be, deceitful at times. There's nothing wrong with calling that out. That's what they do things, for their own interest. The early part of the Old Testament, that was the whole point. I think of the story of Levi and Simeon, and they go in and they say this group of people that this guy, what did he do? He slept with their sister or raped her or something like that. And then he wanted to marry her. And then they said, they're pissed off. Jacob, who is Israel, is pissed off at them. But his sons, Simeon and Levi, are extremely pissed off. So they do something they deceive them and saying, okay, you want to become a part of us? Well, let's circumcise you, and then you'll become a part of our people. And then they do it. The guys join ahead and they do it. They all get circumcised. We're going to be a part of this new group. We're going to get wealthy and all that and have all this stuff. And we get to be a part of this thing that they're always blessed. But Simeon and Levi go in and then just wipe them out while they're hurting after being circumcised. And they just wipe them out because they made like a deceitful covenant. So I understand they've done that. And if you even read the Apocrypha, there's events that they'll do things that they're not worried about lying at times, because they'll say something misleading, but they're doing it for the further and best interest of their nation, of their people. So whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But I mean, it is what it is. So I think there's good on both sides, Gentiles and Jewish people. We could come together. That's the whole message of the New Testament. The barriers, the wall of hostility has been broken down. And I think that as Gentiles in this point in history, we are trying to build that wall back up. What we are doing right now is to build that wall back up, which the whole point of it, Jesus dying on the cross, was to make the new man, of new people. It's not to remove the distinctions. Jewish people remain Jews, Gentiles remain Gentiles, but there is a brotherhood, a new citizenship, a new, a commonwealth that we can all have together. And that's the whole point of the message. That's what brings us all together. I'm seeing different contradictions in Nick, but I have contradictions in myself that I need to think through. And right here, I'm seeing, that's what I'm seeing from his point. He's berating Jews at times and people of Israel. But at the same time, at the second breath, he says that he would rather live with them immediately as opposed to people of Muslim faith, which that is striking and startling. Why are you snapping at the people that are the ones that you would have so much commonality with? And that's a disagreement I see with Nick, and with a lot of people. I know it's not popular, and I know people don't want to hear it at times. But it's where I stand. I'm not perfect. I'm trying to learn more about this. And I don't want to say it like that. I'm trying to learn more about this. I think we all have growth, room for growth in wherever we stand, and whatever issue it is, But we need to think these things out and not just go into this new year, lackadaisical, and not even knowing where we stand, what's right, what's wrong, because we could go off a cliff if we're not careful. All right, we'll leave it at that. Smash that like button. Follow me on X and Instagram at Brandon Fogal, and have a great rest of your day.